Uh, the this is, I mean, it's real enough in that the SQL works, but uh, I don't know if we want to do it this way or not or whatever. But anyway, so I've got this query, my very small test data set, filtered to April 2018. And now, again, didn't really know where to put it. Just click on a measure, get this drop down, and so let's say, what about in the previous month? And it's really fast because it was cached because I made sure that worked. So now we've got this kind of little period pivot thing that's displaying the values of the measures in the current period versus that previous period that I picked. Or I can do previous quarter. I think I have data there. And then these should definitely be ordered in some canonical way. Right now it's like totally arbitrary and random, but it does, it's in the SQL, and then we can just do any arbitrary range. So here's 2 months previously. So again, really weird when they're not ordered and jarring, but they're all there. And we've written some SQL, basically like we've got this filter, we transformed the SQL to be an or of the filter, or 2 months ago, or last quarter, or 1 month ago, and then we've pushed the val. Then we've made a big we basically pushed then the values of all of these filters into these measures, and then pivoted on this thing, selecting the different measure, the different filtered measure depending on the value of the pivot. So it works for, so it's like not like you can put, whoops, not to pivot, like it works with other pivots, right? And you can do, like, it should work with the rest of the system. Don't explode, please. Yes. So like you can, right, like it's all the SQL all composes together. Like I don't even know at this point what this is, but right, we've transposed the measures and we're showing the values of them across the various periods. So yeah, I mean, we would have to have a discussion of like whether there are like implications of doing it this way with a filter. It means that for people who are paying attention, when I first flipped it on, like suddenly like more dimensions showed up, or more values of the group fields showed up, because there were values in the grouping that were not in this period. I could mash the back button a bunch to show you, but like there are implications of doing it that way versus trying to not make new group values show up. I think it's kind of nice when they show up. Anyway, yeah. Inspired by this, I won't say the prospect's name, but Jess has been working on some stuff for a prospect, and it kind of looked like this. And anyway, we'll see if this becomes real or not.
Can you touch those columns with stuff like calcs after?
I hope so. Let's just try it
Okay.
real quick. I mean, now we're here. Let's get out of transpose measures, because that's just like
Yeah.
a little too confusing. But yeah, I mean,
I feel like these just work like normal fields.
yeah, they should all, at this point, everything is now kind of
Nice.
yeah, I mean, it's all
Perfect.
at that point a normal field, like just the layer the calcs operate on, they don't care. So
should we think about the period as kind of like a new dynamic dimension, something like that?
yeah, so that's, I played around with this is what I came to. It was literally this. I started off not doing it this way, and then literally seeing the thing that Jess had built. Like it's both kind of easier from an implementation perspective to just say all your measures get the period over period treatment. Now you have this dynamic pivoted dimension, basically. Like it must be pivoted. It's a new dimension. There are obviously drawbacks, like you can't like just take the value of one measure and pick it in a div one period and do, but like this has it's very kind of like it's sort of simple enough.
Yeah.
in a certain
How
way.
how easy is it going to be to parameterize what the period is?
What do you mean?
Like if you wanted to do a 753-day offset, does that make any sense? Like, is it welcome to handle any period?
Yeah, I
Yeah, I guess
mean,
custom would do it. Okay.
yeah, you just go custom, and in theory, I even probably would want to give us a UI treatment, but like, yeah, I mean, in theory, you can even go forward into the future. There's probably not going to be any data here, but
That might make sense for like Salesforce.
where to go? Negative 14 months later. That's not right. 14
Okay,
months
that's
later.
okay.
But
I mean,
yeah,
that's pretty much it.
yeah.
Fascinating.
So yeah,
Whoa.
This is awesome and super
Does
powerful. Conceptually makes a ton of sense.
um does it make any sense? So there's a couple questions. If date is in the table, will it still work?
so that I no. No, it will
Okay.
not. It will not do the thing that you want it to do, right? Where it takes
Okay.
the dimension. If you have, 2011, 12 as a value in the table, it will not. And you say 1 year previously, it will not put 2010, 12. It will not take the value of 2010, 12 and put it in that column. Um, that would be. I thought about that. I was like, what would it take to do that? I don't know that. I don't
It's
actually
probably
have.
worth thinking about that because like a really, really common use case is I've got weeks and I want to just get last year and the year before. And I know that you could do that with pivots in some sense, but usually there's some restriction that's making it so that's more difficult.
Yeah.
Um, and like you can do the calc offset thing and subtract the rows off the bottom, but if that could magically work also, I think that would probably be a huge win for many use cases too.
Yeah, for now we'd have to say like you have to do we do that week of year, right? I don't know about week of certainly months. You have to do month of year filter on
Yeah.
year and then do so yeah, it's pretty different kind of like SQL structure that would require to do that. And I can't actually think how to do it. But I could think harder.
Okay. Um, I'll try to think up like the use cases for those sorts of things because I'm like not able to articulate why people want to do that right now. I mean, it's usually because they're trying to look at a small time window over time, and they want to look at a few offsets that are way outside that time window. So like I'm trying to look at the last 8 weeks, and I want to look at last year's last 8 weeks and the year before's last 8 weeks, and just asking for 900 rows of data feels terrible. Um, so that tends to be the use case for that type of ask.
Yeah. And maybe I bet you maybe there's a way to do it. Maybe there's a way to do it. Think about it.
Sorry, I missed the beginning. There's a direct connection to the filter value?
Yes, yes. Sorry, I didn't really actually even explain that. But just one more time. It's like it's filtered to April 2018, and so the presence of having a kind of range-like filter, a date filter with a beginning and an end, kind of activates now this option. So I can say like this is all relative. We'd have to tweak the language here to be like this should really be like created at in previous year or whatever. I don't know. Like it all needs to be thought through and polished. But like this is to say this is gonna have no data, but that month, the previous year in like 2017, 04.
Is there a reason the filter has to be present?
Well, so without the filter and without the feature Colin just proposed, there would be nothing to be previous to, right? But no, like ideally, you would be able to drop a date dimension into the table, select this option, and it would give you the value of that dimension offset 1 year. That's just harder. Like
Yeah,
you would
sorry. I guess from the perspective of like a priority to running the query, you need some value. But okay. I mean, the thing that just from a UX perspective that I never really love is when like certain magical feeling values are in the UI, then certain menus appear. But I understand from the from the logical perspective of why you need it before you run the query.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but to that point, I do think even like for fills, for example, it's definitely confused a lot of customers where, why is the fill available sometimes and not other times too? Even just having a menu that's disabled, I think definitely would be with like a description like, hey, add a whatever range filter on the date. I think that definitely still a step forward too. Um,
Yeah, or maybe the menu like is always there. You click it, and if there's no field, there's some kind of workflow or something that indicates like
yeah,
pick your
totally,
filter value.
totally. One other random question too, more like the getting into like Excel subtotally type behaviors. Can the dynamic period be not pivoted? Could it be like a grouping, or like part of you've got display here and then you've got
Yeah.
a
Yeah, yeah,
couple.
yeah. I mean, maybe that is the way to do it. This right now it's just forced into a pivot.
Mhm.
That it would be kind of there's nothing in the back end that
It's
like,
not.
yeah, we can just say we aren't going to pivot this. It would be more in the UI treatment of like how do you then allow a user to pivot it when it's not a real field? Maybe it's just an option. Pivot the period. I don't know.
It's kind of cool because like in some ways you could think of it as like we've got these parameterized date functions that take truncations of a date string and give you back a higher level object, and this is like kind of another class of like these sort of dynamic fields associated with a given date object also. um, you could like you almost maybe could create the dynamic field on any single date object with that might be the way to do it. I have to think
That's
a
where you
little.
need the row by row stuff, though, Jamie.
Yeah, I have to
Yeah,
think a little bit more about it.
that's
But
where we need one more splash of magic to
yeah,
actually to make that
Yep.
work. And yeah, and maybe you wouldn't even want to release this without it because it would be so frustrating. You'd like want to be able to do
No,
that.
this is
this is
still interesting in isolation, to be clear, for sure.
definitely.
It's just that like they're different use cases. Because this is super helpful if I'm trying to get like performance this week against performance last week, or performance this week, like single value tiles. This is super magical. For time series, obviously it's nothing. So it has a definite use case. It's just that immediately people are going to ask for the other one too because it's going to be so pleasant for that. Like this is exactly what you'd use for any single value use case from now on.
Hey, Steven, later on, can you walk me through it again so I can figure out? I feel like I like 75% understood some of it.
Yeah, no, sure thing.
Because I would love to think about how we can like do some of these UI tweaks to make this like just feel like, oh yeah, that's what you should do to get this.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's really because it's all about the filter, really. It's like I have a date filter. I want to basically cancel. I want to make another column full of measures where I basically canceled that date filter and
Cancel.
added a new
Yeah.
date filter relative to that date filter. So, like,
Yeah.
I want to not have this filter on these 2 months previously. Instead, I want to have the filter where I've moved the boundaries over
Right.
2 months.